Israel Adesanya and Dricus Du Plessis is official. It is the fight to make. I don't understand all of the sudden backlash. I understand the initial backlash when this fight was first discussed. But now that it's been announced, I see a lot of MMA fans just getting angry for the sake of getting angry when there's no way you really believe the UFC was going to make any other fight than this one. People are acting surprised that this fight got booked. This is the fight that the UFC has been planning for months. This is the fight that the fans have been expecting for months. People have been talking about this. People, content creators, everyone. We've all been talking about it. And now people are acting surprised. I understand that Sean Strickland deserves a title shot. I understand that. He's going to get one anyway. There's no market for Robert Whittaker title fights right now. Robert Whittaker is going to beat Ikram Aleskarov or lose. If he loses, Ikram Alescarov's not getting a title fight. Whittaker versus Adesanya 3? No one gives a fuck. Whittaker versus Dricus Du Plessis? Dricus Du Plessis whooped his ass. Why would we want to see that instead of Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis when Sean Strickland had one of the best fights of the year against Dricus Du Plessis? Sean Strickland is going to be fine. He's going to get his title fight. Like, I know that after the Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis fight, there's been this idea that Izzy doesn't deserve a title shot based on merit. And I agree with it. Based on merit, he's a 500 level fighter throughout the past 5-6 years. Not 5-6, more like 3-4. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. On merit, I agree. But we know the UFC was going to make this. And so the people that are saying, what the heck? You know, what's going on? Why is the UFC announcing this fight? I don't believe the outrage. It really does seem like it's just virtue signaling. Oh, man, they did the wrong thing. Like, they just want to get that out there. I agree, based on merit, Sean Strickland deserves it, but he's going to get it anyway. In the meantime, we have a much-needed comeback of a big star. The reason why this fight is sick is because, let's be honest, the UFC's been shit lately. I know that maybe I'm having a little bit of a recency bias thing going on right now because we just got off of Tatsuro Taira versus Alex Perez, which caused depression for a lot of people. It was quite literally the worst card I've ever watched. It didn't even deserve a full card breakdown. It was that atrocious. I'm still upset about it. But, guys, the UFC needs Adesanya. Conor McGregor may never fight again with the way that things are looking for him. I know Alex Pereira is turning into the face of the UFC and he's a big star and whatnot, but, you know, Pereira is awesome. He's not going to be around forever. Neither is Adesanya, and Pereira don't speak English and Adesanya does. Whether you like him or not, he's polarizing and he's going to sell this fight. And he has a beef with Dricus Du Plessis that has been building for multiple years. And not only do they have beef, they have the most polarizing beef that you could possibly imagine. So tell me why you're not excited for this fight. Do you like Izzy? Then you want to see him win the belt back. Do you dislike DDP? You want to see him get knocked the fuck out. And if you don't like Adesanya, then I assume you're looking forward to the viral videos that content creators make about his return. I assume that you get excited for an Israel Adesanya fight week. I assume that you are interested in hearing his media day because maybe he'll make a fool out of himself with that cringy lines. With the cringy lines, man. You're sitting here and telling me that Adesanya fight weeks don't feel bigger than the average champion's fight week? I feel like we're in a little bit of a dull period when it comes to big personalities as stars. Leon Edwards, I mean, the guy is basically a mute, man. He shows up on fight week, he's all right, but once he's done with his fight, he goes back in hiding. Tom Aspinall's all right, but man, we need champions, or not necessarily champions, but we need people fighting for titles that are going to make things interesting, that have star power. Adesanya has 9 million followers on Instagram. This is probably the biggest comeback that we've had in a long time, outside of Conor McGregor, but he's not even coming back. I mean, this is the biggest comeback we've had since, I'm trying to remember. I mean, it's definitely way bigger than Jose Aldo's. This is a big moment. Adesanya is someone that the fans are used to seeing 3 times a year. He's been out of the cage for a year. He's coming back for this grudge match with Dricus Du Plessis, and you're really sitting here telling me that, screw that. We got to do Sean Strickland part 5 with Dricus Du Plessis. We'll see the fight anyway. So I like this fight, all right? It's going to be a big fight feel that we've been missing, bro. I mean, really, we've not had a sick build-up to a fight in quite some time. Yeah, UFC 300 was awesome, but it didn't have that rivalry feel, and we need a rivalry right now. We absolutely do. So, again, I think a lot of the backlash against or towards this fight, is just kind of forced. Like, I understood it 6 months ago. I get that. I understood when we were talking about the prospect of Adesanya getting a title fight in a rematch after he lost to Sean Strickland, and we were all saying, what the heck, man? Like, he just lost the belt to Pereira. He got a second chance. Now he loses again and he gets unlimited chances. What's going on? But again, like, we've been knowing that he was going to get a title fight upon his return. It shouldn't be shocking to anyone. Who do I think is going to win this fight? Before I get into the Adesanya fans grasping at straws to hype up his overrated legacy, and the Adesanya fans are back. I'm looking forward to a good battle with them. Well, there's two ways in which this fight can go down. I do think we're about to see one of the best versions of Israel Adesanya that we've ever seen. He's been resting up. He's, been a guy that's fought 3 times a year for the past, 4 or 5 years of his entire career. So you got to think that in a lot of these fights, he probably wasn't, at least athletically, in an optimal state. Now that he's had a year off to rest, to really focus on skill building a little bit, and to make one last push for, a good win streak, I think we're going to see a really good version of him. And Dricus Du Plessis is very hittable early on, is sloppy, and does overextend on a lot of his combinations. And I could see Adesanya, who's going to be doing a lot of grappling training with Craig Jones. They're going to be training specifics, and Craig Jones is a master at preparing people to get out of bad positions on the ground. I think Dricus Du Plessis could just miss a couple of takedowns, not be able to take Izzy down consistently, and overextend on a punch and walk himself into a counter shot by Adesanya. I think we could see a viral KO, and that would be massive for the UFC. It would be. It would be huge. And I actually think, we kind of need that in a way. But as much as Dricus Du Plessis leaves himself open, and he is a little bit sloppy, I still think he's extremely underrated. I watched back his fight with Sean Strickland earlier today, and I was impressed by how easily Dricus Du Plessis was able to land on Sean Strickland compared to Strickland's previous opponents, Adesanya included. All right? Dricus Du Plessis, yes, he is a little bit sloppy. Yes, his technique is off, and he leaves himself open sometimes. And he looks goofy, right? I like to call him Captain Underpants because he flies at people with his arms fully extended while he's throwing punches. But he's underrated because this guy has one of the best gas tanks in the UFC. There was a rumor that he had a horrible gas tank back in the day, and it was sort of half true. But at the end of the day, he got a nose surgery, so his breathing is more seamless now. And also, he was still finishing people and dusting them up and breaking them in those fights. Now, it's easier for him to breathe, and Dricus Du Plessis is one of the only fighters in the heavier weight classes that's super powerful, explosive, and strong, that can also throw hard, that can put everything into their strikes and throw hard with volume, and mix in takedowns and put on a heavy pressure pace from the moment the fight starts till the very end. Dricus Du Plessis' gas tank is insane. It's almost suspicious. There's not many guys that are that built that have his gas tank that are throwing as much volume as him. So right off the bat, he's a nightmare for anyone. His physicality is a nightmare for anyone, and he can mix things up. And also, he doesn't get enough credit for game planning. Dricus Du Plessis' ability to game plan for his opponents is excellent. Look at his game plan against Robert Whittaker. He perfectly was able to counteract Whittaker's karate blitz, and he was very well prepared for Whittaker's high kick combination, which he missed a bunch of times. Dricus Du Plessis against Sean Strickland did a really good job of changing his approach midway through the fight, and also mixing in a lot of body work, mixing in takedowns and much needed moments. He does have a very good ability to game plan. He's got a good team around him. He has a granite chin. He's hungry. He's still in his 20s, I believe. I think he's like 29 years old. He should have the advantage in this fight. But I just see Adesanya gritting down, looking angry like he did against Alex Pereira. and knocking out Dricus Du Plessis. But there is something to be said about us always overrating Adesanya. Like, Adesanya's aura does get in the way of an objective opinion at times, because I do realize that Adesanya is a limited boxer. Yes, he's got good kicks. He doesn't really have a whole lot to offer in the clinch, right? Can't really offensively grapple, especially against a guy like Dricus Du Plessis. He doesn't have the best kicks in the world, and his boxing, I mean, if it's not a big gnarly counter shot and a big winging hook up against the fence in the first 2 rounds, we usually see him with, mediocre jab, a decent right hand, couple kicks at range. I mean, he doesn't really have like just a really dominant striking skill set necessarily. I think he's fast. I think he's dangerous. He can hit hard early on, and he can catch you off guard with a weird rhythm of striking. So he does have an ability to finish this fight, but I think if it comes down to a tit-for-tat battle and it goes the distance, I don't see Adesanya winning this. I think Dricus Du Plessis makes it ugly, and Adesanya, if it gets into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, those rounds in which he's never had a finish, I think we're going to see cruise mode Izzy, who, again, kind of just settles into doing just enough to be in there. And I think Dricus Du Plessis' aggression, cardio, gas tank, I think he's going to start to break Izzy down. And as long as he can keep his guard up and avoid getting KO'd, he should be able to win this fight. And again, had a lot of success against Sean Strickland offensively on the feet. Much more success than Adesanya. I think his striking is actually underrated. But it's a very dangerous fight for him because, again, he does leave himself open at times. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Adesanya fans. 2-time champion. Yeah. I'm seeing a whole lot of the 2-time champ is back. It sort of reminds me of Americans saying back-to-back World War champions, or a Yankee fan. Yankees have the most World Series champions. 27-time champ. Except for Adesanya, this 2-time champ shit to me is just the epitome of cope. And I can't be the only one that is seeing that. I mean, the only reason why we even get to call him a 2-time champ is because he got his ass kicked by Pereira. Yes, he got it back, and that's awesome. And for his storyline, it's even better. It's like when Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz. In a way, that was even better for him. But guess what would have been better in the real world, in the paper world, where we tally up who's really the GOAT? If he had never lost to Nate Diaz. You know what would have been better than George St. Pierre losing to Matt Serra? Never losing to him and beating his ass the first time and not having that loss on his record and being undefeated. That's literally always better than losing. Okay, so avenging a loss in and of itself is great because it's one of those things where, like, okay, we can't change the past. We got to just make whatever we do. We got to do what we got to do in the future. I get it. It's great. But it'll never be better than not losing. And so I'm even hearing people saying 3-time champ. Damn, I can't wait for Izzy to be the first and only 3-time middleweight champ. You're acting like that's a flex. All that means is that Adesanya is the most privileged champion getting undeserved title shots after being a 500 level fighter. So let me get this straight. 2-time champion because he got beat by Alex Pereira and won the belt back, which in and of itself is impressive because we can't change the past. But again, it's like, is it really better to be a 2-time champ than just to defend that belt against Alex Pereira to begin with and never lose to him? Right? It's almost as if like that's more of a flex than Adesanya just defending the belt. 3-time champ means he's got to lose after beating Alex Pereira to Sean Strickland, and now he's got to get the belt back. So we're basically playing hot potato in the middleweight division. It's basically the hot potato division, and you can't even say I'm head and shoulders above the rest because you're a win one, lose one, win one, lose one type of guy. So I just think the Adesanya fans are back in full force. I'm looking forward to discussing this fight with them. I'm looking forward to the back and forth. I'm looking forward to the build-up. I'm looking forward to the trash talk. I'm looking forward to the press conference. I can't wait for this fight, man. Okay? Like, again, all this backlash, it's just virtue signaling. We've been on that shit, man. What, have you been living under a fucking rock? We've been discussing this fight not being deserved for Adesanya for months, for more than half a year. And people are acting surprised. I don't buy it. You guys were having passing conversations about this shit throughout the past 3 months. We've been talking about this. I've had a video talking about predicting how every champ is going to lose. And I had Adesanya and Dricus Du Plessis fighting in there. And I was saying Dricus might get KO'd by Adesanya. And no one's saying, dude, what do you mean? That fight's not even happening. Why are you acting like it's going to happen? Because everyone knew it's going to happen. Okay? Again, we're not in September of 2023. It's 2024. We've been knowing that Adesanya is going to get an undeserved shot. We've been knowing Sean Strickland deserves a title fight based on merit, but there's no Ikram Aleskadov title fight coming up. The UFC fans would literally revolt, as they should, because he doesn't deserve a title fight after beating Robert Whittaker when Sean Strickland's waiting in the wings and he had a arguable robbery loss on his hands against Dricus Du Plessis. It was one of the closest fights ever. The fans want to see it. The UFC knows that. The numbers are going to show that when they're deciding on whether to do Sean Strickland or Robert Whittaker next. So I like this fight. The Adesanya fans are grasping at straws to try to hype up this guy's mediocrities. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's got a mediocre career. I'm just saying it's like the dude's losing, and that's why you get to say two-time champ. All right? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.